welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast, empowering you with simple, practical, step-by-step spiritual tools and practices to follow your purpose and light up the world. You can access all episodes of the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos and interviews all about finding and following your life purpose. My name is George Lizos. I'm a spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and the #1 best-selling author of Be the Guru, Lightworkers Gotta Work, and Protect Your Light. And today I have with me David Wells. David Wells is an astrologer, past life therapist, author, and teacher. For 25 years, he has studied the wisdom of Kabbalah to learn more about himself and fulfill his life purpose. David now teaches others to use Kabbalah to help them make positive and powerful changes in their lives and runs a Tree of Life membership site. David, welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast.
Hi, George. Good to be here. Good to see you.
It's wonderful to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about the Kabbalah. It's something that I've been dancing around for many years. I've been reading about, found fascinating, but never quite got into it. I had someone on the podcast in the past to give us the introduction, but I always wanted to dive deeper into the Tree of Life specifically, and I was so happy to see that you have a deck come out, and you also have a book about the Kabbalah as well. So I want to hear a little bit first, before we get started talking about the deck, about your own experience with discovering the Kabbalah and working with it. What has been your journey to being where you are today?
Well, it started with an awakening, which was an uncomfortable one. It was an illness one, as some people often have. Then it kind of led me to the door of Kabbalah. I pronounce it Kabbalah.
Yes.
But I think the beauty of it was so synchronistic. I had the opportunity a couple of years before I actually started, didn't see it really, because I was young and foolish and had other things on my mind. And then fate pulled me back to it, and it felt very fateful. So the introduction was, first of all, through astrology. So I had just took a basic astrology course, and then it led into these teachings that were took many, many years, to be honest. It was a very long-term thing. But the beauty of it was, for me, and the magic for me, was that as I was studying it comes into your life. It's not like instant manifestation. It's very subtle. It's very it kind of, it kind of comes in, and then you do the work and you think, there's the lesson, if you know what I mean. And it just does that all the time with me. Plus, I'm really not that well organized, to be honest with you, George, a bit scatty. It helps me organize my teachings. It helps me organize the information that's coming in, massively full of symbols. It's a very symbolic thing, obviously. The center of it is the Tree of Life, which is a massive symbol. And that really works for me in terms of, I know where to go. I know where to go and where things are. That really works for me.
So it's like a framework. It's a spiritual framework about life, essentially, and therefore it helps you understand things and put things in the right category and channel information in a specific way, which I also like structure as well. So I always love me a framework, a formula, something that I can look at to help guide me and understand things in a deeper way, especially when it comes to deep spiritual lessons.
Yeah.
So what is Kabbalah? Kabbalah or Kabbalah, depending on how people
how you say it.
Because I know that there is one with Q and then with K, and then there are different ways to spell it as well.
As C's and all sorts of things. Yeah. That's why I took the word "the" out of it. People said "the." I took that out of my when I wrote it, because
yes,
it's not a "the," it's a all-encompassing.
Yes.
And it is different things for different people, and it's taught in very different ways. And I think that was is part of the confusion, because you don't know, is this Judaic? Is it Christian? Is it what is it? For me, it's a magical system. End of story. It's a magical system, and to try to fully understand it, it's a mystery for a purpose. Dependent on who you ask, it was given to humanity by an archangel, by Michael, or some say Raphael. Some then say it's linked, as these things usually are, to, it could be Atlantis, it could be Egypt, it could be, all of these things are in the mix. But we do know that it became something very tangible. The libraries of Alexandria, people would meet there from different faiths, and I think that's where it really got its shape, because lots of different faiths, lots of different people have helped build this particular tree. And then we go into the realms of 18th century, 19th century teachers, and we go into fortune and more modern, you would say, teachers. And this is the point of the deck, really, to be honest with George. It's complicated. All of that is, I can pick up a book from one of these incredible teachers and still read a page and think, I really need a cup of tea and I need to sit with this for an hour, even after having studying for so long, because it has to sink in. What? And that's the beauty of it. So I really thought, like you were saying, if we strip it right back to, I call it given Kabbalah, because I can't imagine that if it was given from an archangel or given from a divine source, that divine source went, of course, on the 14th path, you must remember there's this. That's a human thing. That's a very human thing. So I've tried to bring it back to its most basic, so that we can start there. And then actually, to be honest, it's up to the individual then where they go with it, how far they go with it, what particular route they take. And again, something really important with it is you could study the tree sitting beside me and we would both see very different things. That it's very personal. That's the beauty of it.
I didn't realize it was that ancient when you talked about the libraries of Alexandria, because that was like the late antiquity. It was where there was a lot of syncretism between different religions coming together and sharing, and trade was there, and therefore people started exchanging information. So it makes sense to have combined different things to create something new. This is where like Hermeticism came up as well, and the Qabalah and all of that. I feel late antiquity is where magic thrived. And then the Middle Ages came and destroyed everything. So it's a good thing. It stuck.
Yeah, it is. It's thousands and thousands of years old. And the thing with it is, you can pick up one book and it'll say it'll be attributed to this, and pick up another and it'll be attributed to that. And that's a study in and of itself. And I dip in and out and find it fascinating. But for me, it's the ultimate end goal. I always liken it to when I open my fridge door and I get a cold drink. I do not know how it makes it cold. I know there's some kind of wizardry going on there with science and things, but my drink is cold. And that for me is, with this, it works. When you study it, it works. That's essential to it.
Yes. Now, let's talk a little bit about the differences between Kabbalah with a Q and a K and a C, because I'm still confused.
Some of the Christian Kabbalah, I think, is C. Now, I'm not really au fait with that, so but the K tends to be the Judaic one, and the Q tends to be the Hermetic Western mystic tradition. So it tends to be the difference with them, and there are differences in the way they're taught, differences in even within the Q. There's different people will put different planets in different Sephira. Sephira, the circles on the trees, Sephira singular, Sephiroth plural. So some people will put Pluto at the top. I use Neptune because it makes more sense to me. And that's how I was taught, which is why it makes more sense to me. So there is, and again, this adds to the confusion. And to me, it's this, let's make it as confusing as possible so that when people come to it, they either go, oh, way too confusing. Or if they're really kind of interested, go, wait a minute, let me just slither on down through here and more than that. And do you know what I mean? That's part of its mystery. But generally speaking, the K, and the one that Madonna does, which is recognized as K, is more the Judaic tradition. But then you have the LAK, which I think is different to the Judaic K, and then rabbis will teach this. So
I'm glad you brought Madonna into it, because I had her as a reference for it.
Well, that's a different. She does a different one to me. I can see, and I have looked at it and followed it, the K, the institution in London and things, and wonderful teachings, but they are slightly different. I see the difference in them because, of course, predominantly. I love the Hermetic one because of the myths, because of the stories and the legends within the pathways, and the way in which we study the planets. It's very Greco-Roman for me, but it doesn't have to be. It can be Egyptian if that's your thing. It can be Hindu if that's where you're at. It can be Norse. All the gods are on it. The Norse, Hindu, whatever. They're all there. My teacher used to say, you can find everything from a godhead to a London bus on the Tree of Life. You can attribute something, and it is true. You can. I've done this. I've taught it using shoes. I've taught it using cakes. So like the top, which is very ethereal and magical and white, would be a meringue. and right at the bottom, which is very earthy, would be a big old fruitcake, so it's you can attribute everything to it.
Let's go deeper into that and talk a little bit about the tree of life, because we all know the symbol. It's a beautiful symbol. It's iconic. Yeah. Now, what is a tree of life and how do we start understanding it?
I think, first of all, lose the idea that it's an actual tree. It is a symbol. Yeah. So it's a symbol. So starting to study it, it seems daunting because, you have all of these circles and all these lines and it's like, what? But if you have, particularly if you have any kind of understanding of astrology and of tarot, then this really, really helps, because that's what the tree is built of. It's built of the circles are the planets, and the paths, so the lines between, are the major arcana of the tarot. The minor arcana are still there. They're associated with each of the circles. So circle number 5 is all the 5s. Circle number 4 is all the 4s. That's an obvious reference. So that symbol, once you start to come down into its very simplistic way of doing it, the way I teach it is, we start at the bottom, which is called Malkuth. Then you work up just through the Sephara, Sephiroth. Then you start to work on the paths. Now, the beauty, I think, of it is that no matter which part you're studying, the formula is the same. So I would ask people to look at their chart, say, or they're the moon. I would get them to look at the moon in their life. Then I would reference it to Kabbalah. Then I would reference it to the moon tarot. So the moon in tarot. So then you repeat that. You look at Venus, then you look at Mars, and then you look at Venus, and then you would look at the sun, then you would look at Mars, then you would look at Jupiter. Then when you've done all that, you start on the path workings. And again, you start at the bottom. You start on the universe path, which is 32. Then you go to the judgment path. So you use the tarot and the astrology, and using that formula, you understand the tree more. But the important thing is, it brings it into your life. The amount of times that students will say, I didn't really think this would happen, but oh my God, this has happened, and it's so the star path, it's so the justice path, it's so the lover's path. We were just talking about that. And that's what I think is the beauty of it. It's not a quick job, George.
Yeah, because it combines so much. There's astrology, there is tarot, there is so much things that come into it. Yes. So it's for people who are serious about their spiritual path, and they want to go deeper. And because it's such a complex system, it kind of allows you to go deeper, I suppose, and get the details and understand things on a deeper spiritual level. And I feel like the Kabbalah is something that it keeps on giving. The deeper you go into it, the more you can get, and you can see the same path, for example, so many times, and each time you're going to go deeper and you're going to understand things on a much more deeper level. Now, you have different types of cards, I've noticed, and I've just shared a few of them with the whole deck, essentially with viewers. You have the magical forces, the Sephiroth, and the paths of tarot, which is basically the major arcana, and then the symbolario. Can we talk a little bit about the intention behind these 4 different types of cards, starting with magical forces?
Yeah, I think that was really, for me, they're the structural cards. They are the cards that show you how the thing works, and physically on our bodies as well. The tree sits on our bodies. So our right shoulder, our left hip, whatever. And we can associate that with the Sephara as well. So also, these cards, I think, for me, whilst they have their own divination, you can also take them out. So say, for example, I'm not feeling very centered. So you take out the middle pillar, you put it as your significant, what will center me more? And then take out another card or 2 or 3, or however you feel. Some people like to read always with 3. For me, that's the case. It's usually 3 cards for me. Some people for 1, then you can, but it also helps you understand the structure of the tree as you go along. So if you're taking out the card and it might come out as the pillar of mercy, then you will think, okay, this card's coming up. So am I being over generous? Am I not being generous enough? Am I being, it's a shield arm. So am I being too protective? Am I, maybe helping someone out when actually you should be stepping back and letting them do it themselves? So all these messages are there within them. The Savara they're powerhouses of planetary energy. But something I'd like to say, George, is the astrology and the major tarot, whilst you might think you know the tarot, and that's definitely influenced, and clearly by the imagery it's influenced, the paths of the Tree of Life and the major arcana are kind of cousins, not necessarily twins. You know, that there are slight differences in them is the beauty of them. So you might be reading the book and thinking, wait, I'm not sure that's the Justice card, but actually Kabbalistically it is. So if you then take with the structural cards, so you know that this path that you're working with runs from, say, there's the Tower path, which runs between Hod, which is number 8, and with number 7, which is Netzach, and it runs in the middle. It's the Tower card. So then you start to realize this is about my conscious mind, which is Hod, and my feelings, which is Netzach, and the Tower card is very much about that, trying to find what's going on between those two things. That helps you then understand the structure of the tree. So, and also for manifestation, if you want to bring in more energy, say you want to bring in, probably using the Saphira, to be honest, if you want to bring in change and you bring in Mars, that's a big change. The Gabura card is, I love the Gabura card. She's taking no prisoners. You know, it's an incredibly fiery, powerful, karmic card. But if you bring that in and meditate on it and go into it, it will help you understand what needs to be unlocked from a karmic perspective, because that's what that card also deals with. Or you could meditate on something maybe like the Yesod card, which is more about your intuition. It's more about your desire and your need to trust your intuitive self more. It's also a past life placement. So I think, and knowing that, backing it up with some astrology, and say, for example, card keeps coming back to you. Yes, we know the astrology of the majors is there. We know that, for example, we know the Tower card is Mars. But if you look at the astrology then in your chart, if you know your astrology, you think, okay, where is Mars in my chart? Okay, Mars is in Aries in the 6th house. So this then is going to be me trying very hard to get more systems into my life, but putting a lot more effort into what it is I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So you can piece it together that way, or you can just use it as a simple, straightforward oracle divination. Take a card. What kind of day am I having? Look at the Magician card. I mean, I love her. I just love that card. And let's just mention, and a big round of applause to Roberta Opwood, who did these images. Soulbird Art is her name on Insta. She's just, and these are hand painted. These aren't digital. These are watercolor painted images. Yeah, just wow.
And you can see the symbolism. I mean, here's the Ouroboros here. Like there is so much like deep symbolism here from the tarot, from astrology as well. I think I could. Oh, here's the infinity sign symbol as well.
From the Magician, always.
And you can always see like the astrological signs like in the designs as well, which is very interesting because they can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And I love you remember that if you look at this Darth card that you've got up at the moment, which is deep knowledge, and it's a hidden temple, really, or it doesn't actually have a temple. It's the Saphira that isn't a Saphira. It's all secrets and abyss and things. But if you look at it, she's managed to put in it the heart, because Pluto, astronomically, when you look at pictures of Pluto, has a heart on it. Actually physically has a heart on it, and she's put it in there, which I think is beautiful, because
here it is.
Yeah, that's actually physically on Pluto. When you get an image of Pluto up on your computer, and you will see it there. And it's I've loved that.
Yeah. Oh my God, so interesting. Yeah, it's such an intricate kind of symbolism, which I love these kind of decks because they are complex. They're not just like superficial. You can read them on a very deep level. Now, how do you envision people using the deck? You talked about, first of all, using it as an oracle deck. We can use it as like frequencies, like because each card holds a frequency and codes that you can use to meditate with, and it creates healing and transformation within you. It brings the card into your life. Are there any other ways that we can use this deck for?
I think if you're an astrologer, you could plot your entire birth chart using the cards.
Wow.
which, so you could put the sapphire around the outside, for example, as the signs, or use the majors for the signs, and then maybe use the sapphire as the planets on your chart, and just tie the two together. So tie the two cards together. I think meditating on the cards is amazing. So hold the card and just do that thing where you really center yourself. You keep looking at the card and then close your eyes, keep it in your mind's eye. And then there's a meditation where you just walk into the card and communicate with the being or with the animals or the creatures of the card, come back out and take the messages from that. Also for physical studies. So you mentioned the books. With the books, you could, now there's an image as well that you can have that will relate to the Sephira, which the books are Sephiroth. They're not, the paths aren't really included in it, but certainly the Sephiroth you could use. But just also use your traditional deck alongside it. So, for example, you could put the whole tree of life out using the cards. So starting at the top with Kether and Malkuth at the bottom, put the cards out in that tree of life format, just the way it is in their natural places, just using the Sephira. Then use them as questioners. So, for example, as we've been talking about Mars, you would go to Gabura, you have the Gabura card, and then the question before you chose your normal, your regular, or your tarot card that you like, would simply be, what is a karmic influence in my life? Or it could be, what do I really need to put more energy into shifting? And then take the card and answer the question. So use it as a grid, as well as other things, really. Many different ways.
A journal prompt essentially that you can use like to go deeper, to write about it, etc. And something that I always like to do is I like to pick a card for the day and I just have it in front of me, and it infuses like my day with the energy and the frequencies of that card, which is amazing.
Well, what do you do, George, if it's a card you don't like?
I had that yesterday, because right now I'm using the Healing Waters by Rebecca Campbell, and the card was Stagnant Waters, and it came up second day in a row. And I'm like, you know what? It's the shadow aspect of life. There's something for me here to explore as well. So let's not shy away from it. I'm a Leo, so I love the sunshine and like looking on the positive side of life. And I used to shy away from the shadow, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just leaning into it. So I like the quote unquote negative cards, because they're just like creating opportunities for change and growth. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's go deeper. So I think, would you say that the tree of life allows and encourages that kind of exploration, going both into the shadow but also into the sun?
100%. The whole thing's about balance, and it's exactly what you said. If those cards come up, and they, especially when they reoccur, then there's work to be done there. I think the whole point of the tree of life really is this awakening. It's your awareness. It's your complete awareness, and however that works for you. And we all have that part of our nature where we need to bring more light in, right? We need to bring more light in. And that's something I love about the deck and love about the tree, is that, when you're learning it, and you're learning it, pretty much full time, some of the stuff is difficult. It's very interpersonal relationships, and the way in which you resonate with family matters. And, it's nothing's off the table, nothing at all. So it offers you that ability then to magically move through it, as well as physically, because the two go together, right? You can't, you have to act on it. It's no point in getting great cards if you're sitting going, oh, the cards were lovely today. What, looking around you, then using it, I think, is key. And it's been a huge, we've all had a difficult few years, but I've gone through my second Saturn return, which was conjunct Pluto. Indeed. So they've been very difficult, and there's been times when my faith has truly been tested, but I've come out the other side with it, and the tree's been an absolute rock in that terms.
I suppose it will be like the perfect tool to work with during like Saturn returns, when we're going through life changes, because it is such a complex symbol that allows us to explore those complex times of our lives. David, where can people get to know more about you and the deck and work with you?
My website's davidwells.co.uk, and my Instagram is davidwells_spirited. And that's probably the best place, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at the old social thing. Scorpio rising, it's a thing. It's a breakthrough thing. We've got to get past that. But but at least I'm true to type, right? It's yeah. So there, and also the books and the
So
card.
David, now I gotta know. So you're Scorpio rising. So what's everything else? What's your sun sign and in moon?
My sun sign's Gemini, so I'm 8th house Gemini, so
Yeah.
Scorpio, and my moon is Sagittarius.
Oh, so you have a good balance of like different elements there.
Yeah, I have my chart as a splash chart, so they just dropped planets and went, well, that'll do. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. All the links for your books and the website and the deck, of course, will be available in the show notes below for everybody to check out. And everybody go get your copy of the Tree of Life Oracle. David, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you so much, George. It's a joy to see you as ever.